Hey everyone, welcome back to AFTV. Welcome to another live show. It's me, James, with Sheroy. How you doing, Sheroy? Welcome back.
Pleasure to be back, man. Since I was last on, you went to Florida.
Oh yeah.
Had your frozen bedroom.
That's right.
Turkish got frozen on the plane.
That is all true.
We saw off Chelsea, saw off Seville. 2 wins in 2. A lot's gone on, man. A lot's gone on.
Everything by that bedroom's gone pretty smoothly, to be fair. Even the flight, I was quite warm. Although Turkish with this cup of tea did make me laugh.
And the blanket,
yeah, that did make me laugh. We're not actually the only two in this studio. We do have other people. We've got Cecil, Turkish, Lee in the room, everyone. We've got Josh and Brennan as well. And I quote, it's because they won't go out in that fucking rain. So we've got some serious... some serious weather outside, actually. I've heard some thunder, I've heard all sorts after what's been like a month of just straight sun and loveliness.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that affects tonight's under-21s game.
Well, that's what a lot of the conversation's going to be around. You know, it's quite fun, isn't it, when you get these summer months, both beginning and end of the season. There are certain players that we kind of, for some reason, think they will enjoy it more at the carpet in the sun, and we definitely saw a little bit of that against Leicester. But Bournemouth, which I think everyone's hoping for a nice sunny trip down to the seaside in England. Not sure quite what the weather's going to be like then. But you look forward to that game?
Looking forward to every game this season. I think that's sort of symptomatic amongst the fan base now. I don't think we've felt like this for a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
My only concern was, is the pre-season form just pre-season form? Because Chelsea they didn't look fit, to be honest, in pre-season. Even Conor Gallagher looked late to every challenge, and that's the mark of someone who's not quite up to speed. Seville, I mean, I don't think I've seen them play that badly in the last 5 years whenever I've watched them in Europe. But we didn't get caught cold, which is something that's happened in previous years. So it's strange. As soon as the final whistle went against Leicester, I was like, bring on next weekend. Yeah.
You know what? I was asking this in Tactical Insight, right? And I'm going to ask you guys all in the comment section, because I think Graham agreed with mine, but I just want to see what you guys think. Is there some vindication for those fans, of which I think 99% of people said this, when they said, please get your signings in early, please get us ready for pre-season, please take pre-season semi-seriously so that we can be ready come the first game? And so often Arsenal weren't doing deals because they were haggling over certain fees, or they didn't want to go for players that weren't the right players. And I understand that all those things play a part. You can't ignore those factors. But the one time Arsenal do get those players in early and do get sort of everything in order, they have actually made a very decent start, not just in terms of results, because actually a lot of people after Leicester were saying, can't believe we won 2 games. Actually, it wasn't that long ago. Emery, the year we finished 8th, won his first 2 games against Newcastle, Burnley. And Arteta, again, the year we finished 8th, won his first 2 games. So Arsenal have done this in recent years, but it's more that the performances and the number of goals and everything that's gone with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's common sense, isn't it? If you get players in and you have time to coach them, chances are they're going to be more cohesive when the first game comes. But I mean, I don't think we were even being unreasonable, because I've not met any Arsenal fans that said you have to do all of your business before the first game. But you need to do the vast majority, particularly for the players that you know are going to be in the first team, the ones that you know are first team upgrades. Yeah. I don't mind 1 or 2 depth players waiting until the end of the window to see if you can get the bargain, as long as you do get it and you bring them in. And that's understandable. Every team does that. That's shrewd business. But if you know you need a front man like Jesus, you have to go hell for leather and get them in early. We did, and look what's happened. You know, Zinchenko, a lot of people spoke about him as maybe a depth player when he came in. I know you still think he might be a midfielder, but look at what he's done since he's come in. You know, you only need to look at his fantasy Premier League price rise to understand how much the entire fantasy football community rates him, which is something I take quite seriously. But it's a common sense approach, and I'm glad it's worked, and I hope that they continue to carry that forward season upon season. Yeah,
and you know, you spoke about Zinchenko there. We've seen Jesus, Saliba as well, who is a new player but an old signing, is probably the way to put it. And they've kind of all elevated the team in their way, whether it be by adding really good depth or whether it be by adding quality to a certain system. You know, this Zinchenko versus Tierney debate, I understand why it exists, but I also think you can acknowledge they're both brilliant at doing very, very different things from that left back position. So I've enjoyed the way Arsenal's level's gone up. You know, yes, it's early on, but in these opening 2 games, I mean, some of the football we've played in these first 2 games, I include the first half hour / first half against Palace, is better than, I don't want to say everything we saw last season, but a lot of what we saw last season. Like, already there's an extra burst of energy and intensity, and I don't know, just like there's an understanding that I think was lacking of fluidity.
What would you say was our best half an hour last season? because I've spoken to a few people about this, and even though we lost the game, a lot of people say that first half against City. Yeah. Now you compare the first half against Palace and some of those moves against Leicester to that, and I'd say on par, if not better.
Yeah.
And obviously the calibre of opposition is very different.
Of course.
But this is something that I think if we can get to the stage where we can sustain that for 70 minutes, there aren't going to be that many teams that can cope with it. You know?
That's the hope. That's the hope.
But again, look, we lost our first 3 games last season, and we ended up on the cusp of getting top 4. So the start of the season, although helpful, is no indicator of how this season is going to continue, right?
Well, and as I mentioned, the 2 8th place finishers started with 2 wins from 2.
Yeah.
So Arsenal have been in this position before. We're not complete strangers to actually, getting the points on the board at least at the start of the season. But it's more the performance that's come with it, the signings and all that. So hopefully Arsenal can just maybe get 1 or 2. 2's maybe being very greedy. But I think if we can get 1 more in by the end of the window.
I think it will be 2.
You think it will be 2?
I'm one of very few that thinks it will be 2.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. What makes you say that?
I think it will be 2. I don't think we would have been looking at someone like Rafinha if we hadn't identified that was a position of concern. These Pepe links with Nice now. I mean, we heard that he was linked with Sevilla before, and he's linked with Nice now. So it looks like that guy might be on the way out.
Yep, makes sense.
And I don't think they can neglect that midfield area. They must know. They must know that if Partey or Xhaka get injured, the quality drop off is far too much to cope with. Even with Zinchenko coming in, the only concern I have there is when Arteta was asked about where Vieira might play. One of the first, he named I think 4 positions, but one of the first that he named was that midfield position. So maybe I'm wrong, and they are prioritising the wide forward over the midfielder. But if I had my way, it would be the midfielder first.
Well, let's talk about Fabio Vieira, because obviously he's the subject of this live, which is essentially the news that Arsenal under-21s are playing tonight. Is against Swansea, I believe.
Yeah.
And Vieira and Smith Rowe are set to get a run out. So there was a comment a little bit earlier. I might have missed it. I have missed it, I think. Was basically saying Vieira wasn't in training, so he's unlikely to be available for the game. Bournemouth this Saturday. But then I don't know how these things work. I understand you want to keep them in and around the first team setup, but maybe they're training with the under-21s for a game, just for a day, just because they knew they were going to play this game. And for the sake of the under-21s and their development, you don't want to just on the day give them 3 first teamers and say, right, make it work. I imagine they'd want to be a little bit of integration. So could that be the reason why he wasn't pictured in training yesterday?
If I'm not mistaken, Smith Rowe wasn't pictured in training either, right? But he's also been named to be playing tonight, so that probably does make sense. And to be honest, look, even though it's the under-21s, it's somewhat demeaning if you just throw 3 first teamers in and say, right, they're not going to train with you, they're just going to walk in and do their thing.
Exactly.
It makes a lot of sense, and you wouldn't sort of disrupt the chemistry within the under-21s team. So that makes complete sense. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Vieira, man, because the way the signing came about, I had no idea that he was coming in. I know he was someone that was actually on one of these shortlists that you drafted of interest, right?
This was the thing. People were like, no one knows who he is. I was like, I know who he is. And we were filming this 3 players from the top 5 leagues we'd won, and he was on my shortlist because he reminded me of. At first, I fell into the trap of saying Bernardo Silva again, but I don't think that's quite fair, because I think he's a little bit more direct. Bernardo can be, but can also be very elegant in possession. And then I saw someone on Twitter compare him to Phil Foden, not ability-wise, stylistically in positions. And when then I heard Arteta rattle off, well, he can play right or left, and he can play in midfield as well. I was like, that's Phil Foden. And actually, those comparisons make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and if you're comparing someone to Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden, whether ill-founded or not, that makes me excited to see him.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one of the reasons why I want to see him. But I also want to see what position he occupies for the under-21s, because even though Arteta may not have direct input into how the under-21s play, I think he will have spoken to whoever chooses the formation and said, well, look, this is where I'm thinking about playing Fabio. I'd like you to start him in there so we can see how it goes. Or he might play 2 or 3 positions in the match. This is all stuff that I want to know, because look, we've started well in terms of the first team. The first 11 looks great. It's nice that we can bring on Tierney. It's nice that we can bring on Nketiah. It's nice that we can bring on Tomiyasu. But we're not negotiating Europe yet. We're not negotiating the FA Cup yet. We don't have a traditional Big Six fixture for a little while. Arsenal right now, even though we're all getting excited, quite rightly, we're doing what Arsenal Football Club ought to be doing.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And there will come much tougher tests, and there will come much tougher tests in terms of squad depth in the weeks to come. I think Europa League starts week commencing the 6th of September or something like that.
Yeah.
Around then, so it's not too far off.
And then the cup comes the week after, so you're kind of immediately into 2 games a week for a month or 2.
Exactly. So even though he's our captain, it might be that Odegaard doesn't play 80. It might be or 90. It might be that one game, Odegaard plays 60 and Vieira comes in there. One day when we don't feel like we need Xhaka and Partey in the middle, it might be that Vieira plays in there. I was curious pre-season to see whether it would be Jesus and Nketiah, for example, or whether it would be Zinchenko and Tierney. Now I'm curious to see where he wants to play Vieira.
And if you were to get Tielemans, who we have been linked with...
You still don't pronounce the S on my man's name, do you?
No,
you don't like doing that. I'm sure it is.
I think it's an error. It's
Comments,
just me.
Can you tell us, please? I'm sure it's Tielemans.
They've got mad at me before.
I'm sure it's Tielemans.
It definitely is Tielemans. I'm just getting it wrong. With Tielemans, he... where does he fit into all this? Because we can't deny, so many journalists have said since January Arsenal want this guy, and so many are still sticking with, and it's not just them, by the way. And listen, I don't want to be throwing around news that isn't from what you'd consider a credible source or a verified journalist or whatever, but there's a lot of people who claim to be in the know that are saying Arsenal want him, Arsenal are going to get this guy. So you're like, okay, well, where's that all coming from? So if Arsenal were to get Tielemans, then you're like, by the way, that's not me saying I know anything, I don't know anything, but it's just what you watch, YouTube videos, whatever. So if Arsenal were to get Tielemans, where does he fit into all this? Because Xhaka has been playing this kind of box-to-box role recently, and it goes beyond just the Leicester game. He's been doing it more over pre-season and everything. Then you've got, depth for Partey, I suppose. But maybe you want a right footer who could play in Odegaard's position to mix it up. I don't know. It's interesting. Arteta's keeping us guessing.
When Manchester City had Sterling, Mahrez, Foden, Silva on the bench, did anyone give a shit where they played?
Yeah.
Did anyone care?
No. Fair
Did anyone care where they fit in? Did anyone question whether they fit in when they started? No. That's the elite team mentality, and I think because of the fact that we've been so desperate and starved of signings over the years, we get someone that jumps into our first 11 and we're like, oh, come on. But that isn't what wins you things. It just isn't. So even if we don't think Tielemans walks straight into our starting 11, bring him in. Bring him in, because one injury in that midfield, suddenly we look a bit lightweight. And I know a lot of people, I don't know if you'd agree with this, I know a lot of people that think he is an upgrade on Xhaka in that position.
Well, listen, I do think that. I appreciate what we saw on the weekend would suggest that Xhaka's the infinitely better player. And I do think Xhaka's much improved under Arteta. I do think that. But you can't deny what team has done the last 3-4 years. And I know that there's, last season he wasn't that great and all that, but the talent's there. Absolutely, it's there.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have said that he looks like he's just sort of bored of his challenge and wants to move on, and that's why his heart may not be in it. But I can't see Xhaka getting dropped. Even after we scored, I think, our second. Yes, Odegaard's the captain, but if you look at that team huddling, who's the one doing all the talking? Who's the one geeing the players up? It's Granit Xhaka. And in the All or Nothing documentary, who's the one that's speaking to Emil Smith Rowe and saying, "Listen, you could be a future captain one day." I mean, that could be you, trying to g up the youth as well. I mean, I understand that he also at the end of last season came out and said, "Well, if you don't have the balls to play, then why are you coming on or whatever." But I think that passion and that fire is something that Arteta rates, and I think that's something that we do need on the pitch. So I have to be honest, I'm undecided as to whether he's an upgrade on Xhaka in this system and in this team. But as I said, I don't care. He's good enough to be in our squad, and he's good enough to elevate us in some way, shape or form. And if we're looking at the 20 or 25 million mark for a player of his calibre, then no-brainer, man. No-brainer.
Back on the Vieira stuff, we are, unsure about, you mentioned the whole worrying about where players fit. This guy can play multiple positions, and that's a great thing. But where he most likely fits dictate what we're more likely to for the rest of the window? Because I still see 2 problem positions: depth in the front 3, depth in the midfield 3. But I think he could be one of those 2. So if suddenly our front 4 is made out of Martinelli, Smith Rowe on the left, one's more pacey, direct, one's more of a creator, and Saka, Vieira on the right, one's more direct, but the other's more of a creator, maybe then it's okay, then it's about focusing and adding the depth in midfield. If Vieira is seen, though, as another Odegaard, could play with Odegaard, could be, one of the 3 alongside Partey and Odegaard, then maybe it's a case of helping Saka out.
It might be. But again, I go back to the way that we went for Rafinha. That was after we had Vieira.
I know, you're right, it was.
So it makes me think that they have consciously been looking for Saka backup, and they didn't necessarily think Vieira was the one. I'm not saying the strategy may not change because of the way the transfer window's panned out. You might be right, and it does make sense. But I really think they do want that wide forward now. And I think that's why they didn't have much trouble throwing the bag at Nketiah, because they knew that they might actually just shell out on a goal scorer on the right-hand side. But again, we might learn a bit more tonight. And it's great to have a player that the manager thinks can occupy all those positions. We touched on it last time we were on live, how that myth about City having 22 players or whatever.
Exactly, yes.
But it's actually they had a number of players that could occupy different positions to a very high standard. And we can see with signings like Zinchenko, with signings like Vieira, that's the angle that Arteta wants to take. Yeah. So it does make perfect sense.
Yeah, and I think that's more true now, because people talk about, we've got the Europa League now, we've got the Carabao Cup. Look, unless you kind of draw Spurs away in the first round of the Carabao Cup, and the odds are strongly against you getting that kind of tie early on, but you could, and I've probably jinxed it now. And the Europa League, again, nothing's ever easy, but you would expect Arsenal to negotiate the group stage of the Europa League fairly comfortably, and they certainly did with the second team when we were at our absolute worst 2 years ago. It would suggest to you that actually Arteta maybe thinks, you know what, maybe if this deal's not right to do this summer, we do it next summer, because actually the need for quite so much depth. Listen, what I'm trying to say in a very, very long-winded way is if we got into the Champions League, whoever you're facing, that first team's got to go out. You're not going to be as comfortable going, well, we'll bring in Ben White for this one, we'll bring in, who's a good player, but we'll bring in Tomiyasu at right back for this one, and we'll just mix it up, because you can't really afford to in the Champions League group stages.
I agree. But do you think Tielemans will still be there next season, available? He's got 1 year left on his contract. Leicester will be wanting some fee for him. Well, I think if we don't go in the summer, someone else goes in Jan.
I think that might be true, because I think we're about to see some teams panic. This is just a prediction, but we've seen Kante pick up an injury. I appreciate Tielemans isn't a Kante, but he's another central midfielder.
Liverpool.
You've got a Liverpool situation with Thiago. Keita can't seem to stay fit for a prolonged period of time. You've got Man United who are just a mess, and I think might just think that, you know what, throw 250 grand a week at this guy, maybe he'll take it. I don't know. Yeah, I have a feeling he could be gone if Arsenal don't wake up.
That's the thing. So if he's a player that they really want, maybe it's contingent upon getting some sort of small fee for Pepe. It might be be that, and then we put it towards that. I don't know. But
or a loan for Lokonga. But I want to see Lokonga play in the Europa League games.
I think he is of the caliber that he probably develops better if he stays with us.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think he needs that wholesale, you know what, mate, just go off and learn your trade and come back. I think he's a bit more of a, you've kind of got the raw materials, but you don't have the experience. I think if you sit here and you train with Partey, you train with Xhaka, you train with Vieira, you train with Tielemans, you train with whoever, you'll get your minutes in these ancillary competitions in the early stages, and you'll really progress when you train with our first team. I can't see him going anywhere.
I agree. Guys, we see your comments coming in and your super chats. We'll get to them in a sec. Just to remind you guys to smash a like on this video if you're enjoying it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet as well, because that way you get all the updates when we are uploading. And of course, with all the football that is, especially to come throughout the rest of the season, there's going to be a lot of content coming from AFTV, from previews, reviews. Obviously, got the Forever Arsenal podcast being brought to YouTube now by popular demand, so there's that as well. Got a late recording for that one as well. So, go check out all that by hitting the subscribe button and getting all your updates. What we're going to do at the end of this as well is a Q&A. So that's why I'm saving some of these comments and super chats for a little bit later. We want to do basically just any thoughts, anything you want to ask, anything you want to discuss in the last sort of half of this show, we'll go through. But before we do all that, I just want to ask about Emil Smith Rowe, because he's another one who's going to be getting a start tonight with the under-21s. 21s or 23s? It was 21s, wasn't it?
I think it's the 21s. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I thought I read 21s. I might be wrong. But anyway, I mentioned a while ago on a live, and it maybe came across as a little dramatic, but I mentioned that he won't want to be having any more of these niggly injuries, because when you're told he's out for a week or two, you know, when you think about okay, a week or two, we'll be fine, and then a week goes by and it's he's 2-3 weeks, okay, minor setback, he's training, but he's not played, he's got minutes, but now we've not seen him in training. Like, what I'm basically saying is he's going to want to find some rhythm in terms of game time, because he's such a talented player, but Arsenal are starting to add real depth. I mean, I think Nketiah and his performances, not over Saka, Jesus and Martinelli though, have been worthy of more game time than he's got. So you see, even he's struggling to get into the team and get the minutes that I think he's deserving. So I do think it's a little concern for Smith Rowe.
They'll get those minutes when the competition comes thick and fast, when we start in these other competitions. But I think what was indicative is, I think it was Arteta pre-Leicester. He was asked about Smith Rowe, and he said, what does Smith Rowe need to do to get into this team? And the first thing Arteta said is, look, he needs to stay fit. Mm-hmm. So I think it may actually be a concern at Arteta's end as well. But I want to put some respect on Emil Smith Rowe's name, though.
Yeah.
The notion that he's some sort of forgotten man and perhaps isn't good enough to be in this first team now, for me, it's a farce. Because even though he was coming off the bench, this guy was scoring some amazing goals, and it wasn't just because defences were tired. Technically, his instinctive finishing, he brings something different to the other players that we have in that position and in the 10, and it's onwards and upwards for him. He's still at that the reason that I think a lot of people are a bit worried is because we know that Villa bid for him, and there might be other teams that are looking at him and saying, well, the guy that he came up with, the guy that has a song with him, Saka, he's getting game time. He's about to sign a new bumper deal. He ain't going anywhere anytime soon. But Smith Rowe, is he unsettled? Go and find out. Go and find out, please. That's the thing. But if you have champion mentality, you don't sit there and go, oh well, Martinelli's nailed down that position now, or I'm not going to play in the 10, am I? Odegaard's the captain. You go, all right, you occupy the position when I'm not fit. Yeah. And wait till I come back. And then it's what a lot of players haven't done, like Pepe, for example. When you do get the chance off the bench, or when you do get the chance in other competitions, you make the manager make an almost impossible decision as to who he starts. That's what champion players do, and I really believe that Emil Smith Rowe has that in him.
I think Emil Smith Rowe is a very, very talented footballer. I think you can see what he's very good at, and then I think you can also see where he can improve. And I think sometimes when it's that clear to you, it's a good thing. It's not like these are his obvious flaws. I think it's like a which, by the way, he doesn't have many, right? But what I mean is, I can see, like, I think he's a very good dribbler, but I want to see that go up a level in terms of like his power and confidence. Like, he can do it, but he doesn't always look to me like he necessarily. How do I put it? He still looks quite raw to me sometimes, which is why I kind of want him to still be getting these minutes. But the talent's is indisputable for me, and I don't know. Just with these injuries, I just know how. I don't know, I've never been a player, but I've just seen it with players in the past, how it can just derail your consistency, your momentum and all that, and suddenly you come on and you're getting used to the pace again, but then actually you're on the bench and you're waiting, and then the game time you are getting isn't at a level that you're used to. So I don't know, I hope he gets a really good, half hour, something like that. What would he get today? Maybe an hour under his belt?
Yeah, maybe an hour. And you'd want to see the absolute golfing class when he plays. That's what you want from a player of his caliber, taking that step down, so to speak, and not playing for the men's first team. You'd want to see that golfing class. And with the injuries, look, it's not as though he was out for the best part of the season with some sort of wholesale restructure of his knee or whatever, right?
Course,
these were just annoying little injuries, similar to Tomiyasu. We were worried, and then we
get more worried about those, because it's like,
if they're recurring.
Yeah, exactly, because it seems like they're recurring sometimes. That's why I'm probably being over the top, and it all comes from a place of concern because I rate the player so highly. Yeah. I just
only
want
time
him to.
Will tell. I think only time will tell with that one.
Well, listen, he came off the bench the other day, which was great. I think the 5 subs rule is going to help in that sense. I think it's going to help. It's going to help Arteta give minutes when actually it wasn't necessary for getting the game done, but it was necessary for the players' development. Who did he come on for? Was it Eddie? I mean, I think the first 2 changes were Tierney and Tomiyasu, weren't they?
Yeah.
And that he did for the game. Yep. Eddie and then Smith Rowe, he probably did to give them minutes, but also maybe, Eddie for Jesus makes sense. But Smith Rowe, it wasn't like we've got to bring him on because it's going to seal us the 3 points. It was, I'm seeing an opportunity to now give him crucial Premier League minutes here.
Definitely. Yeah. But that All or Nothing documentary, Arteta's walking around and he says, look, the reason I believe in this group of players is because the ones who haven't come on, I can see genuine smiles on your faces and good things will happen to you as a result.
I loved that quote.
These aren't he made a point of using the word genuine, because look, I know I've been in a number of rooms where, you know, I may have obtained some success or someone else might have, and you look around the room and you see smiles, but they're more like grimaces, James. You know, it's almost a painted smile. They're not genuine smiles. They're pretending to be happy for you. But Arteta's honed in on the fact that even those who aren't necessarily directly involved are genuinely happy for the success of that team, and that's the mindset that he needs to cultivate. And if he can do that, then maybe Emil Smith Rowe does remain genuinely happy by being the benchman that scores 10, as opposed to the starter that scores 15.
Well, I've got no doubt he's patient. Because his rise was so quick. Arsenal are in a complete mess. He gets called upon against Chelsea on Boxing Day, and suddenly he's the star, and he's given the new contract to number 10 and everything. So sometimes a little slowing down, being taken out of the limelight, doesn't actually harm the player. Especially when we're dependent on, you know, Saka and Emil Smith Rowe have their song, and at the moment it feels like it's Martinelli and Jesus who are very much leading that. But that's fine. That's great, because, you know, Turkish made a good point. How often in a front three do all three play well in a game? Might be two, and then the other's decent. Saka was by no means bad in the Leicester game. He was fine. So yeah, I just want him to get minutes. I'm going on a little bit about it. I want him to get his minutes and show a consistency in his fitness again, which isn't his fault. You know, anyone who thinks this is a criticism, it's not. It's a pure concern for a player I rate. Let's see what everyone's been saying. Obviously, a lot of love for Smith Rowe. Harik Shun says Eric ESR. I was struggling with that. Emil Smith Rowe will surprise everyone this season. Edon Pika says, I don't understand here. So, who do you guys want the coach to drop to start Smith Rowe? No one's talking about dropping or anything like that. It's nothing that the coach is doing wrong. It's about Smith Rowe just being readily available. The guy played the Nuremberg game, and then wasn't, you know, went on tour but didn't play any of the minutes on tour. Didn't come on against Sevilla. Wasn't on the bench for Palace, and now he's got 20 minutes. But that's quite a prolonged period of time. You know, it wasn't like we knew he had this ankle injury that'd keep him out a month or 3 weeks. It's not like we weren't briefed on anything. It was just, he's got a niggle, we don't really, you know. And then that's quite a long time to be out. You missed the whole of pre-season, essentially.
Definitely, but with that, again, it's something that Turkish touches on quite a lot. We need to stop talking about dropping and start talking about rotating, because all the teams that we're aspiring to be like, I'll go back to that City analogy. No one says Mahrez has been dropped. People say, you know, whoever else has come in. It's rotation. Yeah, and they do still get involvement, and they do still contribute to the success of that team. It's symptomatic of the way that Arsenal Football Club and the fans have been treated with signings, that now we've almost got this abundance of choice and we don't really know what to do with it. Yeah, we're just focusing on who's in the first 11, when in actual fact that's not how you win competitions, and that's what we should be looking at.
P. White says don't sleep on Smith Rowe. NR says Smith Rowe is good on the wing but made for the 8. We have depth. Xhaka, Vieira, Zinchenko, Sambi. I think we're going for a winger to cover Saka and Martinelli and allow Smith Rowe to transition to midfield. I think that's a great shout, and actually that is a really good point. You know, in that left-sided space, he's mentioned them here: Xhaka, Vieira, Zinchenko, and Sambi Lokonga. Now, people will ask questions about is that the level they're happy with. We don't know Vieira's an 8. We've had many years of Xhaka, which brings doubt for some, though he's playing very well at the moment. Zinchenko's predominantly been left back in recent years over midfielder, and Lokonga looked quite raw last year. So with all 4 of them, there's an argument for why you still want a Tielemans. But I'll pronounce the S. But I think there's a good point there, and you chuck Smith Rowe into that list as well. So I think that's a good point. Jim says, no, I love Smith Rowe. A lot of love for Smith Rowe, and rightly so. I hope none of the thing I've said or anything that we've discussed here has come across as, you know, in any way that we don't rate the guy or doubting him. I'm just hoping for better fitness luck for him. Yeah.
I mean, we all want him to play, and the only when he came into that team, as you said, it was Saka and Smith Rowe almost having to carry this team of what ought to have been men that are far more experienced than them. Saka's a very sort of bespoke animal in that he had the ability to do it. But when you touch on, you know, sometimes I just want to see Smith Rowe, you know, have that confidence to sort of really drive at players or whatever it is. That is very rare for a player of his age, and we often forget the weight that was on their shoulders when they came into that team. That Chelsea game that he came in, weren't we on one of our most horrific runs? We'd lost God knows how many games. No one expected us to beat Chelsea. Yeah, and the amount of pressure to start to start a game in those conditions, he's really had a baptism of fire, and that has definitely contributed to the levels that we expect of him. But let's not be ridiculous and terms of what we expect of him either. You know, he's surpassed expectation, which is why we're so keen to see him back and so keen to see him grow. But yeah, we both love him. Every Arsenal fan loves Smith Rowe, man. Come on, man.
No, they do. It's true. Let's get into your questions, super chats, comments, and hopefully address most of them as best as possible. So R. Thomas says, if the Gabbies continue to play well, we'll have 8 starters going to the World Cup. Far cry from 2018. Could that be an issue? If they're going, it means they're good and they're playing. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why people are concerned about burnout, fitness and so forth, but look, the reality is most of the big teams and most of the teams around us are going to have internationals that are going. You know, there are very few nations that aren't going that will have players in these sorts of teams. I know Odegaard will stick around, for example. I think we'll retain El Neni. Haaland might be sticking around the City, but the vast majority of these players are going away. So it might be an issue, but not just for us.
Yeah, I agree. Evan says, I'm nervous to say I'm excited.
I hear you, man. I hear you,
but I
Evan.
am. Come on, you Gunners. Yeah, Evan, trust me. I was recording ahead of the Bournemouth game, and they were asking me, you know, how you feeling about the season. I was just like, I am excited, but we've had this before. I don't know if we've had it quite like this, where Arsenal have really done everything the way I'd want them to, and now here we are in this position where the season's starting, and we've started it really well, and the performance has been great. But I'm nervous to say, like, wow, I'm excited. I think we're going to have a good season. I'll go that far. I do think we're going to have a good season.
Even the idea that you might be excited is more than we've had in recent years.
Yeah, I know.
Last season, particularly because of pre-season, I was dreading the start of that season, man.
Yeah.
And then when I knew about the COVID and the injuries, and I was, oh no, I know where this is going. So the fact that we're even quietly excited says ample about the progress that we're making, and long may it continue.
Miles says, I think we should wait until Tielemans is out of contract and get him on a free. Xhaka under Arteta has got better and better, and Sambi needs the minutes, which is why I raised that question about whether Tielemans might play. He's missed the S on Tielemans as well, which raises the question about whether Tielemans might be seen as one of the other 2 and the 3 over Xhaka's position.
Maybe, but again, in terms of waiting until he's out of contract, I honestly don't think he'll be around.
No, you think he'll be snapped up?
Yeah, I think. Look, you know what it's like in January when you need to shift a player if you're Leicester, and you know you're not going to get any money for him. I mean, he's one of their better players, regardless of his form. They'll want something for him. And if we're not going to go in now, I can see there being a lot more competition to sign him in January.
Savarine says, James, what is a good season? Finishing in the top 4, doing it with more conviction than last season. So for me, those 13 defeats have to be halved. Like, really? Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I'm not asking to double the wins. Wouldn't be possible, by the way. But you got to halve the defeats. 13. And the amount of them that shouldn't have been. Like, Southampton away. 1 chance they score. We were the better team, and actually the thing was that came on the back of 2 other defeats before that, but actually in that game we were significantly better, and we lost. Everton away from home, we were awful.
Horrible.
We were awful. That was more of a we shouldn't have lost just because of the form that we had shown in the months before and the form they had shown, and that performance was just unacceptable. Man United,
Odegaard gives away the pen.
Odegaard gives away a pen.
I thought we were better in that game. I thought we were better than them in that game.
We were the better team.
Yeah,
comfortably. We probably didn't create as much as we wanted to. We were the better team. Trying to think of other defeats throughout the year.
Palace, we didn't turn up at all.
We didn't turn up, but we got absolutely battered, and probably fairly. I'm just saying,
Brighton, that second goal for Brighton. I mean, that was like Brighton looked like the Harlem Globetrotters against us for that second goal. You know,
like I
had to leave the barbershop that day. I was sat there watching it in the barbershop after my trim. There were Liverpool fans all around me. That second goal went in. I was like, I'm not watching this. I'm just getting back in my car. It was horrible.
Wherever you are, you can't escape the pain.
It was horrible.
So to answer the question, what's a good season? Halve the defeats. Score 15 to 20 more goals. People might think that sounds like a lot. It's not. It's not for a team that's meant to create a lot of chances. I want to look at the goal tallies again for the Premier League table, because I remember doing this in the season review, and one of our problems was the amount of goals we scored. So goals for. So Arsenal scored 61. Okay, maybe 20 more. Well, it's not really.
Bear in mind, that's 61 where our captain and best striker wasn't firing and we got rid of him. And the striker that we brought in to replace him is someone that, even in the All or Nothing documentary, has been identified by the club as someone that doesn't score goals. which is why we then had to bring Eddie Nketiah in, who did very well at the back end of last season. But look, we're not actually that far off the team that finished fourth. We're a bit further off the team that finished third. But that's with no real recognised striker for the vast majority of the season.
You know what? I said 15. I thought that sounds a bit much. It's actually really not. We scored 61, Chelsea 76. There's 5 points between us, 15 goals. So they scored 15 more goals than us, and they only made for 5 extra points. But this is my thing. Like, I was listening to James McNicholas on Arscast Extra, and he said he thinks fans, if they were offered 2-0 against Leicester or 4-2, they'd have taken the 4-2 because they'd have wanted some kind of conviction about Arsenal's attacking prowess, and that is absolutely spot on. And we need more of those. We need Arsenal. I want to see them in that top range for goals, for just being entertainers.
And look, I know it makes no difference in terms of the table, but I look at that 4-2, and that to me wasn't really a 4-2, man. The own goal was very unfortunate.
It was a 6-1.
Yeah, Saliba had the right idea. He just didn't execute it properly, and Ramsdale knows he should have done better for the second. But my God, man, the amount of goals that we could have scored. If I'm trying to rattle them off now, the Jesus one where Ramsdale plays it long to him, the Jesus one at the far post where Saka's parried shot, Xhaka's header. I mean, there were so many, I've probably forgotten the vast majority of them. That is, and I know it's pre-season, but we put 6 past Sevilla. It's not often that we hit teams for 4s, 5s, 6s, and the more that we do that, the less likely it is that we not only lose games but lose them in clusters of 3. That was fatal last year. Losing your first 3 games is bad, but if you lose your first 3 games, you cannot lose another 3 on the bounce at any point in the season if you have Champions League aspirations. And then at crunch time we lost another 3 on the bounce. I can't think of Champions League level teams that can get away with doing that.
Well, actually, Arsenal had, when I compared it to the season before, Arsenal had more, I think, 3+ winning run, 3+ game winning runs last season to the season before. So actually, Arsenal were able to go on a run of 3-4 wins on the bounce, 5 wins, or 4-6, or 5-7, or whatever. So Arsenal were able to have sustained periods where they were collecting points. I think I remember, was it 8 wins out of 11 in that run sort of after Everton where we lost? I think we won. I want to say it was like 8 wins, 2 draws and a defeat, or a draw and 2 defeats. That was up until the Man City stuff and all that, and then through into March. So Arsenal had gone on a really, really good run and showed that ability. But you're right, they just go through these bad patches that actually your brain remembers Arsenal as mostly a good team last year. But it's like when it rains, it pours. Like when we did have that we went off the ball, we had an injury, we had to adapt. It'd be right, that's 0 out of 9. What?
But the fluctuation was inexplicable. I still remember before the Palace 3-0, we looked great going into that. I know that there were players coming back for the international break, but I just wasn't concerned about whether our performance would be there in that game. Obviously, I knew the result may not go our way, but there was a massive performance drop-off, and it made no sense. I mean, the Everton game, for example, we were so bad in that game. Even in All or Nothing, Arteta looked baffled. He called it, but he was like, why is this happening? It made no sense. That level of fluctuation has to stop. We have to have a base level that we maintain throughout the season.
Nature of a young team?
Maybe. But look, I mean, we've been saying they're young for a while. A lot of these guys, they're youngish now, but they're not kids anymore. And they've been playing at a high level for 1 or 2 seasons. You need to learn. We can't keep using age as an excuse for inexplicable inconsistency.
Josh wants to know if we would take Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea. He says we haven't had a big physical midfielder since Abu Diaby or Alex Song. Turkish as well, showing lots of love in the chat and showing love for you, Sheroy. Go check out Sheroy's social handles as well, as we've got them there. Turkish put them in the comments.
Love for that.
So Loftus, I think Major Bricks has put an interesting comment in there.
Where are we?
But anyway, Loftus-Cheek, a player. Listen, he looked very good the other day, but is that more the role he had in a particular system? And
I just don't trust the guy's injury record. If there are people with historic injury concerns that have kept them out for the vast majority of seasons, stay away from them. It's like buying a Category D car after an accident. Why bother when there are safer alternatives? It's not worth the risk anymore. Particularly in a position where we know we've been troubled by injury, and it's not one of those positions where you can risk shelling out that kind of money and bringing in someone who's not going to be there all the time. I'd rather go for someone with a proven track record of staying fit who can play an entire season. And I think we've been linked with, when it comes to Chelsea, I think the links have been with Hudson-Odoi as opposed to
some loose links, but they're there. I would love him.
You take Loftus-Cheek?
Yeah, I would. It's not even I would take. I would actually try to do that deal. I just think a lot of people might be like, why? Why am I sounding so excited about it? But I think he's a really talented player. I think he can play comfortably both off the right and the left. He's even shown ability at right wing back. I don't think we'd ever need to, but if so. And I think Arteta's got such a track record with wingers. Such a good track record with wingers that he could develop him without immediately compromising Saka or Martinelli's development and regular game time. And I think you've got a player there that can really naturally alternate across the front three and be quite dangerous. I like him. He's direct. I understand the hesitation, but
I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that. I'm just worried about how many games a season he'll be fit to do that. I mean,
does he have injury problems?
Historically, I mean, even Tuchel does rate him though. I mean, he said, "Look, I brought him in because we needed that physicality." It's clearly something that he brings, and it's something that not a lot of players have. I'm just worried that he can do it. He can do it for a full season. That's all.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Ismail says, would you take fourth or a European Europa League... Sorry, why did I read the U? Anyway, Europa League win. The age-old question. Age-old since that defeat at Newcastle. Which we're going to hear all about tonight, by the way, on All or Nothing.
Yeah. What would you take? What would you take? Because, I mean, the problem is progress is more often than not indicated by your league position.
But it is.
Because that is the toughest test. So if we drop out of the top four yet again, I don't think we can say we've improved. And I think it's actually, if we don't get top four this year, that's the lowest form of improvement, given that we finished fifth last year. But trophies are trophies. That's a European one. That gets you into the Champions League. If you get into the Champions League, maybe you can attract the calibre of player that you need to maybe not just shoot for fourth, but shoot for third, second or first. So I see the pros and cons in both. And I know a lot of people would say, well, look, mate, one gets you Champions League and a trophy, one just gets you Champions League. But I'm now getting really concerned about league progress. Really concerned about league progress. And I want to see it.
Listen, I know last year was better. It was, I guess you could say, even significantly better, 8th to 5th, even though it's not where we want to be. But, yeah, I do get what you're saying. I can't shake that it's a trophy. Like it is, ultimately. I know it's not even the trophy we want to be competing in, but it's a trophy. It's a European trophy. It's a path into the Champions League. It's an amazing trip. It's popping champagne. And I just think that's what it's about. That's the end game in football. It's to lift silverware. So, yeah, probably win the Europa League. That's what it's about. In the end, everything we do is to compete, to be the best we can be, and winning is, I mean, where does the Europa League rank in terms of achievements that a club like Arsenal could have? It's, I mean, Premier League and Champions League, and then, up for debate, FA Cup or Europa League. But I think there's plenty of evidence for it being the Europa League.
Yeah, the Europa League's not as easy as it once was to win because of the calibre of teams around Europe.
That drop into it. Yeah.
Exactly. But as you say, winning breeds winning, and I think maybe winning a trophy could do a lot more for the mentality of the current players than finishing in the top four would, because they would see themselves as, we've won something, we're champions of something.
Yeah.
And that could have a really, really big impact on them going forward. And you can bring in the same calibre of player because you're in the Champions League afterwards. So it could be where we kick on. But I don't want it to be one or the other, to whoever asked the question. I don't think you were insinuating that it ought to be.
Yeah.
But I think we ought to be gunning for both.
Agreed. Chaitanya. Guys, does it make sense to get players now? World Cup is in about 3 months. I'm predicting January will be hot and more relevant this year. I'm going to comment on that really quickly. No, I think now's the time. I think a lot of the reason we've had so much activity and players desperate to move is because of they want the right preparation ahead of their World Cups. And I think football clubs are sensing that. And I think it could be too late come the World Cup. You don't do your right business, it could be too late. Yeah, you could bring in Tielemans and your Rafinha replacement in January, but 18 games are gone by then? I think it is that many.
Yeah. And over the years, man, how often have you seen a player that you might have been linked with go and have a storm of a World Cup and suddenly the price goes bang?
Thank you. Another great point.
So waiting until after the World Cup could be problematic because suddenly you're paying £30 million more for a player that you could have picked up for a lot cheaper if you got your business done early. So I think we need to get players in now. And I will always go for preparing early and adequately over waiting for a good deal, but that's just me.
I'm actually anticipating very quiet World Cup, very quiet January window, just because why would clubs They're trying to get settled back in after losing a lot of their players. They'll probably be having pre-season, or mid-season pre-season games, second half of the season games. That's what you call them. And I just think people want less hassle than they're already having. They'll just be like, no, I almost forget this is even a window. We just want the players back. We want to get them fit. We want to look after them and go again. Like, I don't think they'll want to be getting caught up in all that, but.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Oh, good point from Turkish. Talking about World Cup gems. There's that. I mean, maybe some will get some big moves off the back of how they perform. The next James Rodriguez.
Yeah. Definitely. There are a few World Cup gems, but as I say, that then goes to price again, right? So yes, you can identify talent in these tournaments, certainly, but you're also going to be paying for them if they look that good on the world stage when the whole world is watching, right?
What a question from Jonathan. Regarding squad investment, are the Cronkies investing just to get Champions League back, or will they continue beyond that and on towards a Premier League challenge?
Can I touch in on this one quickly?
Yeah.
I thought that the window where we brought in Ramsdale and everyone else was an immediate reaction to the Cronkies shitting themselves because of the Super League protests. Mm-hmm. I was concerned that would be a one-off because it didn't align with what they've done historically. I know they say, well, look at when we had full ownership, but even if we do, it doesn't really align. I was then vindicated in being worried because of what happened in January. We were on the cusp of doing something not special objectively, but special for us. Mm-hmm. We didn't get that investment. So this summer, I was looking at this summer like this goes one way or another here. They either go again or they show their true colours. But they've gone again. Mm. They've gone again. And I'm now hearing, I get that people will say they have to make those noises, but they don't because they haven't for a number of years. Edu and Arteta saying, no, we need to win things. I want to win titles. These sorts of noises haven't come out of our club for a long time. It's been very much, look, wait until the stadium's done, or it's a difficult market, or whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're not hearing that now. Mm. But I've been sort of burned so badly before that I don't want to put money down and say no, they're actually going to go for a title. But I think they also understand that attracting the caliber of player that we need can only happen if you get top four. Mm-hmm. That's why I wanted to get top four so badly last year, because they would have had no excuses, man. We would have known a lot more about the Cronkies.
Yeah, it's true.
They would have had no excuses in terms of the caliber of player that we could bring in. But now they kind of do, because if we don't get that height of player, maybe it is because we're not in the Champions League. But I think we can only really answer that question once we're back in the Champions League and we see how they react. Because my answer is, once you're back in the Champions League, the next step, you have to start gunning for titles. You absolutely have to, particularly because teams like Liverpool, teams like City, they're so elite. How long can you keep that up for?
Yeah.
How long can you keep that up for? Football's cyclical. We have to be waiting in the wings to be next in line.
Which is why I think a lot of the focus has been on youth. They're basically saying we're not going to try and take on Liverpool and City now, but we're going to hope that when that drop-off comes, which is inevitable, we are ready to pounce on that opportunity with a team that's ready and has grown together. At least I hope that's their plan, because doesn't look to me like the signings have been about winning now. Yep. But I'm okay with that. I'm quite patient on that front. Erhard says, I won't forgive the Cronkies till we win the Champions League and the Premier League. Fair enough. Timbo says, great point. I think Josh Kroenke wants to win. It goes back to the old, do we care that the Rams are winning the Super Bowl, and do we care that, I can't remember who won the Stanley Cup, and all these other teams that they own. And I just put it this way. I'd rather have owners that are experienced winning elsewhere than owners that aren't experienced winning elsewhere. It might be a way for them to hide, it might be a way for them to... It might just be that their focus and love is there. It might have no bearing and importance on Arsenal whatsoever. But it's better than them owning clubs and none of them win. Then you're like, oh, okay. Well, we'll also say we're going to be the exception. So, yeah, I remain hopeful.
Yeah, it shows that they maybe know what it takes in certain industries and certain spheres to win something, but I think the vast majority of the fan base now are like, I don't really give a shit what you do with your other clubs. Bring that to us.
Yeah,
looking at last summer, you know what? I love the business that we've done this summer as well, but it's not complete. I want to judge this window properly when the business is complete. Because
absolutely.
If we don't address that midfield position properly, mate, Lee Judges is going to have a absolute fit. He's been calling out for a midfielder since the beginning of last season, and in January, and pre-season now. I mean, and it won't just be him; it'll be the vast majority of the fan base, and that might be where we come unstuck. So we've done great business till now. I love every signing that we've brought in, even going to Marquinhos, in fact, and the way he's I think he got a goal and an assist against United, and then and 2 against West Ham, maybe. It all looks good. Let's just finish it off now.
I agree. Shreth says Mikel shouldn't rush Tomiyasu, Smith Rowe, Vieira. Long season ahead. We have a set team after ages, so we shouldn't change till game week 5. I want to watch Marquinhos soon. Well, Shreth, you get the opportunity to watch him tonight. They are streaming that, I believe, on the Arsenal channel, website. I'm not sure. Go have a little look. So yeah, it'll be interesting what they do, and I agree, no need to rush them, especially when the team is in this kind of mood. Timber says, I agree, James. I know it's easy for us to criticise the Cronkies all the time. These guys want to win and are highly successful. Well, I will say, let me read the rest of the comment. I personally give them credit. I know fans don't. We'll debate that all day. This is where I stand with them. You can't ignore everything that's happened. They always point to, they didn't did it all or nothing. They point to when they took full ownership in 2018. Clearly, they want people to believe that that's the marker. They were majority owners, if that's the terminology, before that. Even if you go, okay, fine, let's go from 2018, it's taken a while for it to go right. And I think a lot of what's gone right has been down to maybe Arteta, and sort of trying to be strong. You even saw that in the way they wanted to do with the Aubameyang stuff. Everyone around him saying, look, we probably need to reintegrate it. And he's going, no, because what message does that send?
And the worst thing about that is Arteta is actually taking a lot of the heat for the Cronkies because of the stuff that went wrong before he even arrived. That's why fans are so impatient. It's not because of necessarily what's happened since Arteta's come here. The guy won a trophy in his first season. But we were already at the end of our tether by the time that he arrived.
Yeah.
And where do you look for that? You don't look at him. You look at the ownership. Right, so maybe they have changed their direction. Fair play to them, and I'll give them their flowers.
I'm a big believer in the Super League happening, KSC having full ownership, and there was a moment of reflection. I know we think these people are kind of invincible, off with their money and their sports teams and their businesses, and they're out in the States or wherever they're living and doing business or whatever, and they see these scenes and they go, oh, okay, whatever. It's got to hurt. 5,000 plus maybe Arsenal fans outside the Emirates, calling for you guys, right? That's got to leave some kind of impact. Now the question was whether it was going to leave an impact of let's panic spend now just to make them think that we're doing it and whatever, or whether it was going to make them go away and reconsider their ways. Now I could be jumping the gun here, but I like to believe, because it helps me sleep at night, that Josh might have even just said to his dad, look, let me run this. Everything, every interview that Sky does, every interview that's on the Arsenal website, every time it's Josh, all or nothing, it's Josh. He is very much the front. He is very much the face of KSC and their ownership.
He said in a podcast that he did, I think, Feb last year, an American podcast, he said that his involvement in Arsenal is because when one of their clubs is not doing successfully, he's the person that gets deployed.
Right, okay.
So he's basically seen as the fixer. And that kind of makes sense because he's a lot more relatable than his father. He's a better orator. He's far better at sort of getting people on side than his father is because he's so detached. You look at Stan Kroenke and you just think that is that classic old, incredibly affluent, doesn't really give a shit about people, is there for his money sort of guy. Whereas Josh, there's something a bit more youthful and a bit more relatable about him, notwithstanding the fact that he's uber rich. But I can't help but feel that because when you get to that level of wealth, the only thing that's really going to hurt, it's not the sentiment, it's the stuff that hurts your pocket, man. And they would have seen the protests. They would have seen the fact that we're now not making Champions League and we might not, and people are going to be revolting over ticket prices and people aren't necessarily going to be buying kits. They would have thought, man, if this keeps going, this isn't going to be an appreciating asset. We're going to be in trouble. And there's talk about, Daniel Ek coming in and maybe buying it. What if people start applying pressure on us to sell? Mm-hmm. I think it was just a shrewd business decision. And if this club is successful, it's also good business. It's a win-win for them. That's why I don't understand why it took them so long.
Maybe that's the driver.
Maybe I'm being cynical. I don't know.
No, well, listen, I think anyone who sees this as negative or whatever like that, I think Arsenal fans have every right to be sceptical in asking these questions. I just like to look at both sides. I think with Josh, when he did that interview with Jess Shreves, like a good year ago, after the signings, we'd made a decent start. Well, no, we had pulled together something like 4 wins and 2 draws out of 6, after that horrible start. And Josh did an interview and he was talking about the players in real detail. Now, either he loves football and he's really into it, or he kind of memorised everything he wanted to say. But either way, I don't care. Because I actually quite like that he wanted to show that he was interested and involved.
It takes some level of effort, yeah.
Well, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, okay, fair enough. And, we asked for communication. That was something. Look, a lot of work to be done. But I'm definitely preferring the direction. And that's the word, direction. It's 100%. Not about how far along we are with it. It's just we're facing the right way.
100%. So I don't want to come across as though I'm not happy with what's being done now. Looking at last summer, even the fact that we fell short last year, but the fact that we were even in and amongst it was more than I thought would happen last season.
Doesn't it feel like every time you ask a question about something that it feels like you must be criticised a bit? Like with Smith Rowe, like I love him, but I'm a little bit worried about his injuries. Oh, come on, respect Smith Rowe. It's like it's like no, I love the guy.
I know.
I'm just and that's it. We are. I think we're feeling really good, and it's reflected in we're excited for Bournemouth.
Have you walked around? I've walked around 5 different parts of London since the Leicester game. Bro, I haven't seen this many Arsenal kits on road in a long time.
Do you know what? I know what you mean.
Old and new, not just these new pink ones.
Yeah.
Old red ones, old JVC ones, the Dreamcast ones, the O2 ones. They're all out, man.
Yeah.
And that's because a lot of people didn't want to wear the shirt for a while.
Feeling pride.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a long time.
Lil Brover says, I agree with Sheroy. We need elite mentality. Sorry, I'm opening the wrong thing. Rotation does not equal dropped. We've been starved too long as fans. Caleb asks, great to see Sheroy. What do you hope to see from Fabio Vieira?
Creativity, goals, assists, lifting trophies, tricks, the works, man, the works. That's what I want to see from every player that comes in, man. That's what I want to see from every player.
Can I give you one more?
Go on.
I want to see guile. Those players that are just like, they weave in and out of challenges. If I've got, again, I love Martin Odegaard. I love him. If I'm to give one bit of criticism with the way Odegaard plays, very pass and move, very inventive, very look up, very trying to find the pockets. Sometimes if the pass isn't on, I want to see that you can actually run at 2 or 3 players. And that's what I want to see from Fabio Vieira. Have you got that ability to go, no one's on? Oh, well, I'm coming at you then. And that you don't have to be ultra quick. Jack Wilshere could do that. Cazorla could do that. They could run at players if they absolutely had to. Rosicky. And they weren't the quickest. They just had that little bit of burst, that little bit of close control that allowed them to do things. So I want to see that from Vieira. KD says, James, Chelsea. I'll pick up KD. I'll always mention it. Came to me at the airport to give us those T-shirts out in Orlando.
Oh, amazing. Is that KD? Yeah. I watched the vlog, man.
Yeah, man.
So sweet.
Yeah, honestly, awesome guy. James, Chelsea back 272 million last season. It might have been that and the season before, to be fair. But he says they look on their way to spend another 200 million. How is this fair for the other teams? How does financial fair play work? Serious question.
Bro, look at what's going on with Barcelona right now, man. I mean, I don't understand how the money works in football anymore. I can't get my head around it. How long have Europe been litigating against Man City and nothing's happening? I mean, I don't know how FFP works anymore, man.
I'm honestly going to offer no comment, and it's not because I don't want to tackle these kind of bigger subjects, because I genuinely don't understand.
I don't get it.
Like, I just don't know. I have no idea. Someone, a Leicester fan, and this is coming from a Leicester fan, I'm not reading this from kind of media or whatever. I asked, well, how come you haven't done any business supported Rodgers? They said, financial fair play. I was like, what? How's it affecting you? Like, like they've spent some money, but so I don't get it. I really, 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 really don't get it. In theory, the way some teams, I'll give you this example. The way Chelsea are able to spend 160 million on Lukaku and Werner and let them go for nothing, and then go spend another 150 plus the year after, all happens within a year or two. That doesn't feel fair to me. That feels like a flaw in the way the transfer market runs and all that. However, it's a free market in the transfer window. If you're making your money in the way the powers that be seem legal, and there's buyers for your players, and you're willing to write off the costs,
and bro,
that's what they want to do.
We can't really talk, man, because look at the amount of money that we've spent on players over the years that we've let go for absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
We paid Barca to take over. We lost money on that. We actually had to forego. I think we ended up giving them about 12 million to take the guy. You know, and then look at we were top spenders last season. We're right up there this season. You know, so we can point our fingers all we want, but we're kind of doing the same thing, just not necessarily to that scale.
Yeah, well, Wynap is making the point. He says they can spend because they earn more. Leicester isn't as marketable as Chelsea, who have been in the Champions League, of course, won it recently. I get that point. I do get that point. It still seems strange, does it not? Then there's something. Leicester won an FA Cup very recently and have been knocking on the door playing European football. Bar Chelsea's Champions League win, which bar the Champions League, it's pretty unbelievable. Fine, we do anything for Champions League. But what I'm saying is, I get what you're saying about the brand and all that, but in terms of raw achievements, you kind of remove that. There's not a lot in it. Leicester beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final in terms of what they've been doing on the pitch. So, listen, I know last season's different. Don't take everything I'm saying quite so literally. The point I'm saying is, it's strange, like something. But I don't understand it either. So someone could easily come in the comments and say, this is what it is, James. It's not very difficult. Shut up. And I'll be like, fair enough. Fair enough. So, yeah, interesting question for KD. But you could ask the same question about Arsenal. You know, they haven't been getting in the Champions League. And now we're spending more. With every year we don't get in the Champions League, we spend more money. So something there seems a bit strange. But I don't know. I've got no idea. I really don't. Miles says, what happened to Reece Oxford? He disappeared after he marked Ozil out of the game. That was about 6 years ago.
Some memory, Miles.
Maybe 7 years ago. Always thought he'd be one to watch for Arsenal. He went on to have loan spells in Germany. And I want to say he's still there. The thing is, I bet he's still so young because he was 16 when he played that game. So he's probably, 22 now?
You've got some memory as well, man.
He's 23, so he's still very young.
Born in 98, my God, I feel old.
Yeah, there you go. So, I've got no idea. Actually, I've just looked him up. I could probably answer the question for you. He plays for Augsburg, and as a defender, apparently. That's how they've got him down, so... Yeah, there you go. True Gunners TV will end on this. Says, I want comfortable finish in the top 4 and a trophy.
Don't we all?
That'd be a great season, but it's also within touching distance. So I will leave it there. Sheroy, any closing thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Not at all. Let's just keep this winning trend going. I'm loving seeing the fan base behind the team.
Yeah,
I'm loving the hostile atmosphere at the Emirates. I'm loving the fact that when we concede goals, we're scoring straight away.
Yeah, it's true.
And yeah, I just want to keep that sentiment throughout the fan base, and in situations where we need them, let's be the ones to lift them. Yeah,
I hear that. And look, guys, as I mentioned, there's content coming up, but do go check out the Tactical Insight show. I know we talked a lot about Granit Xhaka a little bit. Well, we talked a little bit about that position, and I know a lot of you guys were in the comments as well, sort of talking about Granit Xhaka and him over team and all that. But there was an interesting segment, if I say so myself, that Graham and I discussed Xhaka and how he kind of moved from not just occupying places further up the pitch, but actually then touches in the box, passes in the box and all that going up significantly in just these 2 games, as a show that it's not just about making up the space, but it's about offering some kind of attacking threat. I think you guys might enjoy that. And of course the Invincibles podcast will be out. We've got Turkish in the building. Is that tomorrow or tonight? Tomorrow we've got Invincibles podcast. So lots for you guys to get stuck into before, of course, Bournemouth. And of course we'll be covering that all. Big thanks, Sheroy, as always. Absolute pleasure having you on.
I love being here.
Thanks to all everyone in the comments showing the love to Sheroy as well. Go check out everything he's doing, his socials and everything. Do you want to just let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, at Sheroyzak. That's SHEROYZAQ on Twitter, and the Instagram is at SZAQ11.
There you go. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. See you next time.